I am very lucky to be here with Ben Sinclair. Thank you for joining me. You are an actor, writer, director, producer. You've been on shows like Dave, Poker Face, Maniac, but you are, of course, most known as the guy from the wonderful show High Maintenance. You are really an icon to I think creative millennials, especially those who lived in New York. Um, so very excited to have you here. And
Okay. Well, and we just talked about the term NonDē, which is, I guess, what I have been doing this whole time. And yeah, really happy to talk about this topic of just like not waiting for permission and then asking forgiveness maybe if you have to, but generally, yeah, I'm really happy to be here and giving back to the I've been kind of quiet for the past 5 years or 6 years since COVID, so it's really this is like the first podcast I've done in quite a while.
awesome. Yeah, I mean, you popped up on Substack and was like, it was a familiar face, and it was very nice to see you and hear what you've
I
been
love
doing.
Substack. I'm loving it so far. It's we talked about like being thoughtful about your speech, and I notice in podcasts I hear people like not being thoughtful and just saying words, more words, and I love the thoughtful quality of Substack that people are trying to gather and organize their thoughts before they present them. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think like that long form writing is it's a barrier that's a good barrier, and it
Yes.
invites thoughtfulness to the
And
point.
keeps the illiterates out.
Right. Um, all right. So your topic is shifting to experiential entertainment.
Yes, the big thought I've had of late, and I've gone to Europe for the past 2 summers for like artistic discovery purposes and seeing how other ecosystems, state run, state funded rather, um, more experimental, European, what is possible when you are not so um, forced to make your art into a product. Uh, I was able to hold on to high maintenance as an art form when it went to HBO, and we weren't making a product. And it was very clear that we weren't making a product. But every time I've tried to pitch a show since then, it's been about how to get the celebrity, thinking about the marketing while you're pitching. There's a lot of stuff that is just about selling something. And so when I went to Europe this last time, I got involved with these people who make these huge trolls under this artist, Thomas Dambo. And they are plugged into a bunch of like music festivals. Like they're more of the Burning Man side of art making with their gigantic wooden trolls than on the gallery art side. And and I would go to these festivals. There was one called Garbage in Poland that has a lot of live performance stuff. This weird group called Mahala, it was like kind of imitating a cult experience there. And I just see how people are willing to participate in long duration art experiences, whether it be a music festival or something like that. It's usually music that people will block out a week of their time for. And then there is also the spiritual or self-improvement arena where people are willing to block out a week of their time for a yoga retreat or an ayahuasca retreat or something that guarantees some expansion of self that seems more holistic and therapeutic. So these are things that, or like, like a vacation where you don't have any programming at all and you end up just looking at your phone. These are like long duration events that people are willing to attend.
Yeah.
Except I haven't seen anything in the theatrical or film narrative kind of event that people, just audience members, are willing to put themselves into this strange situation where they are both the characters, performers, and audience. It's kind of like LARPing. You do kind of see it, and there's places in England where what do you call it? The romanticy people try to stay at an abbey and do Bridgerton. And I did talk to some people who do LARPing in Europe, which is like very Viking based, anachronistic retellings of usually epic battles. You got the Civil War reenactors, you have your Renaissance festivals. You do have these things that have um, their place, but I have not yet seen essentially a long duration performance that I would actually be attracted to because the story would attract me. I guess when I think of Punch Drunk production, Sleep No More, like that comes close. It was a one night only thing, and I really enjoyed exploring that space on myself, but I didn't feel like a part of the show necessarily. So I do think that as when we started high maintenance, there was no algorithm yet.
Yeah.
We were able to use the critics that we knew and our communities. Yes, there was social media then, but as creators, we didn't do very much to promote the web series. We just wrote an email to our friends and said, watch it or don't, we'll never know. And then it got to the critics, who some of them we knew just offhand. And Katya was involved in casting, so there was exposure to the entertainment industry. We weren't in the middle of nowhere doing this, but we weren't sifted by an algorithm. The algorithm now prefers on Instagram, I know it prefers like a face talking to camera.
Yeah.
And there was shadow banning of other things that weren't that. And so we're so splintered in our niche tastes by this algorithm that I actually don't know that anything that is on a screen can avoid this algorithm anymore, which is why I'm interested in experiences because I think the screen itself, while like what a wonderful container for this past century of narrative telling, really wonderful box.
Yeah.
Can't I don't I don't I think that the, the situation is now that we are so inundated with screens and that your movie is attached to everything else that exists on the internet, and you're competing for the audience's attention on this screen with all of those other things that when you get to a non-D enterprise, you're eventually like, of course, funding it is a big pain in the ass, but then distribution is
Yeah.
the other thing. What am I going to put it on like Prime and it's going to fall so it's like I am sort of hopeless about that whole enterprise. Not hopeless, but you're gonna have to, if unless you cut through like Barbarian, which even, movies like that, which were so cheap, or you could say The Brutalist was like whatever, but this is like for inside players using a democratized technology that was democratized 20, 25 years ago for everyone else to make things, but there is still this gatekeeping happen by like a very small group of billionaires who are building these algorithms who get to decide who gets the attention.
So I still have not started the 20-minute timer, but I'm going to now
Okay, fair enough.
because I
Okay.
want to get into this. So theater, I don't know like its origins, but like it was interactive, like in
Yes.
like ancient Greece. Um, and like film, arguably, like when the train was coming at the theater, like the Lumiere story, maybe not interactive, but like it was immersive in a certain way.
Piano players, you were
Exactly. Yes.
all together. Yes.
Yeah, it was that was a big shift. I read Kurosawa's biography, and his brother was I guess like a pianist for or
Hmm.
whatever the musician who played along with silent films, and then sound came, and like his career was like completely destroyed, and like he had like a very sad life after the fact because his career no longer existed. But yes, this was all like social, and I guess one of the things that I wonder and that I get the sense that you are thinking about is, did we just get to a point where the experience is so frigid and so isolating? It was never meant to be like this. You're either going to a theater but it's you don't interact with anyone at any point before or after. There's no social part to it, or you're streaming at home. Everything is completely isolated and alone.
Yes.
Uh, is is this how art is supposed to be experienced?
Um, well, I try to get rid of supposed to. I try to make not make demands on the way things are generally. If I say must or should, usually I'm making a demand and I feel bad that it's not being fulfilled. So I do think it is a result of the atomization of communities to create units for capitalist structures to be able to count and quantify their success based on the unit. So I think that it is an extension of the productization of art, and it's just easier to measure a blockbuster by how many tickets sold rather than how happy the group was or how good the vibe was. And then we're measuring the success of movies based on how much money they made rather than the quality of the movie itself. So should not, it's just a consequence of capitalism. But I know for myself, the most fun I have at the movies is those moments where the entire audience reacts and a reaction I wouldn't make at home.
Yes.
Those
This is
that is what we're trying to save in with the theaters.
Yeah, I think there's a sort of stubbornness from like those like clinging to like the nostalgia of the theater
Yes.
that aren't really acknowledging just how social an experience it is, and that it's those moments when everyone gasps or everyone laughs that we actually really crave. It's like that togetherness. And I know that you are a fan of live music, and I mean
Yes.
that is unaffected as far as I know. I mean, I don't see that being threatened terribly in any way.
Well, you have to, in order to get any momentum, you have to be a huge act. You
That's
know,
that's
and those ticket prices are quite high. I
yeah,
didn't talk about, like, I did a series on my fish run on New Year's Eve, but I didn't jump into like the prohibitively high cost of tickets and the kind of audience that itself selects. So there is that quality to it. And, I've tried to pitch stuff at the Sphere. And what I learned when I was pitching at the Sphere is that there is an extraordinarily small target of artists that are able to play there because it has to attract both people who are just hanging out in Vegas, that crowd, and it also has to, like, the band has to pay to play there because for a certain amount of time until they start making money back. So these long residencies are just because of the massive amount of resources and electricity and money that it takes to put on a show. So that's like the tip top of like the frontier of art, which is being consolidated into just the few of the biggest acts that can attract. But what I'm interested in most is, of course, grassroots experiences. I sent you Yumi Bum Bum Train to
yeah,
take a look at. It's been going on for like 2 decades, but every 5 years, and it is an experience where there are 90 audience members. We'll call them passengers, or they call them passengers. And one passenger goes through a series of rooms depicting circumstances in wherein the audience member is the high status character or focus of the situation. And you have like a situational experience where the member of the audience is part of the show, and that, according to the testimonies and according to like the vibe of the group, these are all volunteers who are showing up for free. 500 volunteers a night to be in these little scenarios, and I won't spoil any of the scenarios for anybody, but where they keep coming back. These are non-performers who are willing to be a part of something. And then I was part of one of these groups. I was in the one of the volunteers one night, and all of them were like, "Yeah, Jeff Bezos came here." That's my awful
I
British
read
accents.
I read the
Yeah, like
Bezos article or criticism of that. And
yeah, it was like this again rarefied experience, and because there are only 90 people a night, it became part of this like hot thing that Madonna and all these people went through without their bodyguards. Although Jeff Bezos, I think, had somebody with him to because and I'm like, oh, this is cool. it was very British, very hierarchical within the volunteers, and ultimately I was like, I don't want to be directed by these people. But that's a person that was a personal preference. I appreciated it, and I said to myself, well, I'm going to these music festivals and these theater things. And I see it just involves commitment. It really just involves an instigator who can marshal the efforts of a bunch of people and make them committed to whatever act is possible. And that Yumi Bum Bum train has been going on for a long time. I think it burned the creators out over and over again. But it is a lasting feeling that of a community, of friendships, of all these things that I just don't think people are able to access via social media and the web series uh, early aughts or early 2010s optimism we had about these structures.
But it's such a fascinating role reversal to what we've been used to. To be clear, it's there is one audience member, and
Yeah, circling
in
through each of the rooms.
yeah, or at least yeah. I mean, I haven't experienced it, but I
Mhm.
read about it a little bit. Uh, I had mentioned to you I couldn't because this is a conversation amongst non-D filmmakers and just any the whole creator economy is how do you it comes back to money. Like, how do you monetize this? Is this a realistic career for anyone? And one of the conversations is often like this sort of exclusivity. Uh, how I mentioned to you, the one example that I think like just is very memorable to pop culture is when Wu-Tang released one copy of their album.
Yes.
Martin Shkreli bought it, and it was a big uproar, which is kind of like the Bezos thing. Uh, but it's something but that is different because nobody really was able to experience that album. This is fascinating in that it's the appeal is not really to be the audience, it's to be a creator, a performer, to be a part of what uh yeah, it's you know what do you say 500?
500 volunteers per night.
Yeah, so it's like, instead of one performer and 500 audience members, it's 500 performers and one audience member. It's
Exactly.
completely new model.
A lot of those people are people who had performing ambitions in the UK and weren't able to do that. And this is fulfilling. They're like training in from all over the UK in order to do this, to fulfill that like stage desire that they held from youth, and also to fulfill this like being part of the production thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think being a I don't know if it's performing, but like I think we're realizing that it's more rewarding, or at least as rewarding to create as it is to experience another's creation.
Yes.
Uh,
Especially after the past 2 decades.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a new I think yes, it's a product of like we've been forced to confront it because of late stage capitalism.
Yes. And we're mostly for free, except when advertisers come around, populating these billionaires' websites with their content. And I use this term honestly as like serfs. Like it is a techno-feudalist world, and we are serfs to um, places that aren't markets. It's not even capitalism because the capitalism requires a market and profit. And Uber's not making profit. OpenAI is not making profit. It is just about controlling our attention. And that is the capital. It's called control capital. So to me, the only solution is to get rid of the leverage that they hold on us, which is attachment to our phones. No, nobody's going to do that, but we can make experiences where we ask people to check their phones. And the novelty of that is, I think, the freedom that not only non-D filmmakers can make, but also people who are willing to recognize that this is like a 100-year-old art form, 120-year-old art form. There is no like locked in way to get people involved in a theater and a screen and we're like clutching onto the past is clearly not working. It's just not going to go that way. So to me, the future is like address the need, which is people are lonely, with something that gets them, offers them not only a catharsis that you used to get in movies, but also the ability to be creators on their own. I went to this spa in Berlin. I spent like many days there. It's called Vibali. And in Berlin and Germany and Northern Europe, it's pretty common to have a co-ed nude experience. And there's like tons of people walking around naked. It's really not a big deal over there. But it's also one of those places where you're like, oh, I'll just stay for 2 hours. And then you end up there for 8 hours. Just because it's just so chill and there's a restaurant there. And it's one of these places. So I'm like, all right, if you can make an environment which is going to attract people to be there for 8 hours and not even want to leave, why can't you tell a story in that environment? Why can't you try to get people who are taking a break from their lives also to be taking a break from their life story and play and anyone who's a creator? I'm not saying we have to do this naked, of course, but I just noticed
I do
that
have to
people.
mention that that's one of my favorite episodes of High Maintenance.
Oh,
The
the nudes?
yeah.
The nudist guy who likes fish that also happens to do with it. But I do see these specific environments that call to people's willingness to leave their world for just a day, and spas are one of those. But also, like, you hear about in the Russian Turkish baths in the Lower East Side or in the East Village, they had the Dutchmen performed in their Russian sauna. So people are starting to understand where theater and togetherness outside of I mean, come on, we could do this whole podcast again about the theater industry and about like the movie, like the IP going to Broadway that kind of pushes the opportunity for any new playwrights to be able to come out
Yeah.
there. We're we're fucked.
Yeah.
So we have to unfuck ourselves by just showing up together somewhere else.
Yeah, I think third spaces is a big term these days.
Yes, okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I've written a bit about this, so I won't like like overly beat a dead horse, I guess. But because I'm thinking specifically about film, but I think what you're saying speaks to art and all mediums on a much larger uh plane. But I think when you say like let's not cling to the past for theaters, I think it's not that's not quite the right way to look at it because I think theaters used to have a social element. Like they
Yes.
were in a mall or there was interaction. Um, and I think it's actually changed. And so it's not that like we have to cling to the past, it's that we just have to bring back some kind of address the loneliness epidemic. And so the what I've sort of like imagined is basically, and a lot of people are starting to talk about this now, is like micro cinema distribution, like pop-up
Yes.
micro cinemas, basically kind of like the bathhouse. You go to a coffee shop and you put on something there, go to a bar and bring the event to the place where people are already gathering. I think is part of the solution for film, at least. I often encourage people to look at trivia or karaoke and be like, these are hugely effective uh, industries.
Yes.
And there's no reason that film can't can't emulate that to some degree.
Of course. And like I also imagine a film broken up into many pieces that you have to go to different micro cinemas
Yes.
to, and in your passage from one micro cinema to the other, then something else happens in real life that informs or opens up the possibility for experience the next micro cinema. So yeah, I mean, I'm just shitting this out. Like
I,
this is where we don't have to. I don't like looking at a screen as much as I used to, essentially, and I'm trying to fix that problem.
yeah, you in your fish article, I think you wrote something like about a couple who they were going to take their like life savings and instead of buying like a house and settling, they were just going to go basically on tour. And I was thinking like your character on High Maintenance, I don't know how much it speaks to you personally, but it's like it's a very like not detached, but like it's kind of like the character is like friends with everyone, but at
He
some
didn't
point
stick around for anybody
he's
though.
spreading himself too thin, sort of. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's interesting how much emphasis now you're putting on like experience that has connection.
Yes.
And the thing that I really am curious to see how it plays out and be curious to hear your thoughts is like what is, and I think you're right to not look at it as like there's a right way, but connection can happen in so many different ways. It can be one-on-one, it can be 100 people in a room, it can be participatory. Some people might not want to, they might just want to be observers. And there's so many different ways to have these experiences, but I think the key is connection.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, and I was looking through this Time magazine of like 25 best invent. There was just all these inventions that came out last year.
Yeah.
And there are so many different ways to monitor our heartbeats, our biometrics, and able to AR, augmented reality, all of these, there is so much technology that hasn't been really explored so much in the art world. I know VR has, and that's been having its time to get out.
Person.
But God, I would love to, like, I have this idea for a festival where everyone sleeps for the first day and everyone gets to a heart rate baseline essentially. I want you to be more rested when you walk out of this festival than you came. And I was thinking about these like bracelets that measure everybody's heart rate. So the average heart rate of the festival is posted throughout. And in order to unlock performances from whatever musicians or whoever, the group has to get their heart rate to a target level as a group together in order to gamify the experience. So you are literally trying to calm down in order to participate or excite on a group level. And these things, I'm like, wow, yeah, let's involve the technology, but let's not populate somebody else's platform who is trying to spend less on creators and optimize slop, essentially.
Yeah. So like I worked in VR and interactive video at Google and like it's very much experienced like this. And I can tell you that the sort of creativity that we want from that technology is not happening and it's not going to be explored, unfortunately. Not
Yeah.
by giant companies, at least. Um, and that's just a fact that I had to admit and like walk away from.
Well, because you have these fucking goggles on that cut you off from everybody. You can't, like, I like the sphere,
Yeah.
not as like a business model or as even a what I won't, but I like it because everyone is under the same iPad screen. Everyone is having a collective experience that is technological in its spectacularness, but we're all there sharing together. And I like and everyone's face is lit up by this screen and you can really look around I saw fish there and the dead and I didn't see you two because they suck, but I saw all of like these people's faces reacting to this experience together and I was like, here we go. It is um being next to a physical body and also the sound is so good there that you can talk at a normal level next to the person next to you and not have to scream and not hear, you know what I mean? It is built for a communal experience and I don't know, I wish it was more accessible to artists who were willing to try things out. And I'm not saying it's not, but in my experience it has been hard to get in.
Yeah. We have hit our 20 minutes, but I want to like the irony that I to yeah, the irony that I sort of like saw in this tech world is um the way that they connect is they go to silent retreats.
Hmm.
And it's I find it very ironic that like that's the only way they can feel this sort of connectedness and at peace.
Or peptide raves now. They go and like optimize their
Right.
biometrics at these peptide raves, which are so crazy.
And so I think you are like you've hit it on the nose. Like this is the future that we need. Whether it's entertainment, art, it's just this is the sort of solution to, I think, uh, the loneliness epidemic is probably the best way to put it.
Yeah.
But like what I guess is like a sort of to part on this. Like what do you think people should be doing to like
First
help?
thing is just put down your phone.
Yeah.
That is like the easiest first step that anybody can do is just get rid of that thing so that you can pay attention to how much beauty we're surrounded by. It is just really appreciation because good art is something that amplifies beauty. Bad art is something that amplifies self. But good art,
Hmm.
even like Marty Supreme, which is about a selfish guy. I mean, come on, dude. That movie is so beautifully constructed and makes me feel my physiologically engaged because of the craft of filmmaking, and the whole room is sweating with me. And I think that is, it's the me generation 50 years ago has turned into this like masturbatory, fast burning flame that I don't judge a masturbatory flame. But it burns up quickly and it leaves you wanting more, like every tech product is designed to be,
Yes.
prompting you to have more. So I like something that ends, and then I go outside and I'm like ultimately with the people I love, and we shared an experience. Yeah.
Yeah, and you talked about this a little bit on like stopping smoking weed and how it was like you were so in your head. Um, and I think there's something to that too, to like we're consuming all these things that are just keeping us inside our heads. And I think like the key to what you said is that you walk away from it with someone you love that you can talk to about the experience you just shared. And it's how going to the theater used to feel for me.
Yes.
Um, so maybe these conversations are a way to like for us to start imagining more
Yeah.
accessible entertainment and art and experiences like this.
Yes. And the greatest thing I noticed in my brain being stoned and not being stoned is that I'm certainly fascinated with my thoughts, but
Yeah.
I don't, and I'm fascinated with myself, but I don't love myself the way that I think I want to, really. So we can look at if I'm fascinated with a technology or a piece or whatever, it's not the same as loving a piece. And generally, that's kind of what I'm pushing us toward in my work is like, when I write these Substacks, I'm like, I focus on suffering a lot and the release of suffering because I find that to be a universal um, attempt throughout one's life that maybe you'll never solve. So I'm really looking for the universal in the very specific details of my own life that I thought were just mine, but it turns out are everybody's.
Yeah. Well,
I think
that's
that's all time we have. We have
yeah.
less than a minute on
Yeah.
our
I wish we
call.
could keep talking. Thank you so much for
Yeah,
sharing.
Avi, it was such good to talk to you and have fun up there. Enjoy it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And yeah, great topic. Thanks, Ben. Hope
See
you
you. Bye bye.